All right, and welcome back to Fix and Repair Daily. I'm Wes. Today we're going to be taking a look at this iPod 5th generation. This is a unit that I modded a while back, and I really got tired of this clear face really fast, which is pretty funny because I normally love the clear faces on, or the clear shells on stuff, but this just really did not age well. I UV printed on it too. Maybe that was what bugged me, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. So we're going to go back with a stock color. So I've already cracked this one open. It's really easy on these, and I've already pulled the hard drive too. So let me go ahead and pull this out and let's look at the internals here. The other thing is, I think this battery is already gone bad. To be fair, I can't remember how old this thing is, but yeah, it felt like it went bad forever. The other change we're going to be doing is we're going from the slim to the slim version was like the 30 gig thickness. We're actually going to switch over to the 80/60 gig thickness. The reason for that is we're going to do a battery upgrade. So let's take a look at what all we're going to do this. We're going to give it a brand new black face, which is a stock color. We're going to go back with a stock black scroll wheel and a black bottom bezel for the USB cable for the 30 pin. We're going to go with this brand new printed, or it's actually engraved, thick back bezel. This one's printed with 1 terabyte logo on it. We're going to put in a new headphone jack. Now, I believe this is the DAC as well, which is like what makes the audio on this. And everybody loves the Wolfson DAC. I think this is an original, maybe. But the Wolfson DAC is what came in these iPods that makes them so desirable. But honestly, I'm not an audiophile. I can't really tell a difference. So we're just going to roll with this replacement unit. We're going to go with this big jumbo 3000 milliamp hour battery. That's going to give us a lot of battery life. That's why we're upgrading to the bigger back. And then finally, we're going to go with this SD card adapter so that we can have more storage space. So that's going to be the upgrades on this one. So let's go ahead and get started with that. First things first is we're going to get that face swapped and put on the new one and the new scroll wheel. So we're going to be using the little tool set that comes included, just in case you want to follow along at home and you don't have a nice tool set. Normally they do include these little bitty tools too. And when I first started modding, this is all I really had, and it was plenty, and it gets the job done. So one other thing, when you replace the scroll wheel on these, if I'm remembering correctly, I think we actually have to pull the logic board, the main board on this one, to actually remove the scroll wheel, which is a little bit annoying. But when you're working with devices that at the time were so small, it's just kind of the way they had to do it. They had to tuck the cable connectors in where they could. So I remember way back in the day, I was in like early middle school, and I had a friend, and he was modding iPods. It was 5th gen at the time. They were like the new bestest thing, and I remember he was buying them off of eBay and then fixing them and then selling them. So he's buying them broken and fixing them. And yeah, it was always a fun time because we would be sitting there running audio boards at our church, and he would be like bidding on eBay auctions. And it's a really good memory. It cracks me up every time I think about it. But yeah, when he quit modding, he gave me like a stash of his old stuff. And yeah, I used that stuff for a while. And iPods are kind of coming back, but they did die there for a while as far as like popularity goes. But yeah, they're starting to come back, which is cool. If I remember correctly, this is just held on with a piece of tape, which is hysterical. There's our tape. And it's actually the ground as well. I don't want to break it, but it's been a minute since I've been in one of these. Yeah, it's taped in. There we go. All right, so there's your main frame, your logic board, and the scroll wheel. So we're going to go ahead and lift that bail. Very gently remove that. So we got rid of that one. And we're going to go back, like I said, with this stock color to go with the stock. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you are buying and modding iPods, they actually come with there's two different versions, and it's like hard-coded in the operating system what color it was from factory. And what I mean by that is if you have an iPod that was originally black, the boot screen is black. And if it was originally white, the boot screen is white. So if you want a white iPod and you want it to look stock or whatever, don't forget that you need to buy a white iPod. Otherwise, you're going to get that boot screen from the black iPod. It's going to look funny. But, you know, if you don't have any idea, like if you're not used to it, either way, it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to affect functionality once you get into it. It's just the boot screen. This one I've had for a long time. It was originally black, and then I put a white face on it, and then a clear face, and now it's going back to a black face, just the way it was originally. So, yeah, it's a party. Oh, man. I don't remember how to put this thing in. I think it slides in. There we go. Huh. There we go. There. Now, we'll go ahead and take this little guy, get the center button back in there, and it's going to fall out because we have to put the screen back in. Yeah, these little guys are a little bit fiddly. They're really amazing for the time how much stuff they fit into such a tiny space. I just remember looking at it and being amazed back then. Okay, so now we need to clean off the screen because I just put my grubby fingers all over it. Just use a little IPA. Then we'll just clean it off. Try to get all the lint and dust off. Okay, and then we'll pull off the inside cover here. Okay, and then this is where it gets tricky because we got to try to keep the dust off. We got to keep the button in place. And it just gets to be a lot. I think, if I remember correctly, back in the day, we used to put like tape on the button so the button wouldn't come loose. Do that real quick. All right, a little blue tape. That way it doesn't leave any residue behind. Like that. Yeah, I would say as far as like aftermarket parts go, that's probably going to be about as close as we can get. So, we can grab our little tools again. Really need a magnetized tool. Let's see. I know I said I wasn't going to use my tools, but I think I lied. These things are just so fiddly. The trick is if you wanted to, you could like magnetize the tips of your screwdrivers here with a really strong magnet. And that would make your life easier. But I'm just going to use these instead. So it's 6 screws going around the outside. And then you see I just like clicked over the scroll wheel. One thing you want to double check, like after you have this thing kind of started, is that your scroll wheel is still clicking. Because if the pressure's wrong and something's not straight in here, it won't. And then it won't work correctly. So before you do all the work to get it tightened down, it's best just to check it. And just like anything that you're getting replacement parts for, 9 times out of 10, the original is going to be better quality than the replacement part. But just like anything, whether you're working on old cars or old electronics, a lot of the times there just aren't any OEM original parts left, especially from Apple. They don't share anything. So, you know, the aftermarket parts are about the best you can do with Apple stuff, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, you know, at least somebody's out there making these replacement parts and you can get them. Yeah. All right, cool. So that's that. Yeah, not too shabby. All right, so I just put power to it to make sure that the screen was working correctly, and it is. So, I think they manufacture this thing just a little too small because you can see this bend right here in the top brace. It's like squeezing that screen a little bit. I think it's going to be okay. All right, so next, let's take a look at the new shell and the new DAC. So I don't think that this has screws in it, which means we're going to have to pull the screws out of the old one. Yeah, and the thing about this model, as opposed to the one we're swapping from, is the piece here is a different size than it is in this one, because this is thinner and thicker. So the easiest way to tell is right here with this. See how this, you may not be able to see, but this one's curved, and for where it falls on this model, it's just flat. So this is the flat one. So we're gonna need to pull this old deck out, get the screws out of it. So I gotta pull this battery. You gotta be careful with pulling batteries. You 100% do not want to puncture one of these. Makes fire and all kinds of nasties. The other thing is, if you aren't replacing your DAC, you see right here, the cables for this DAC are actually touching the adhesive on that battery. So if you're not real careful, you'll just straight tear that ribbon cable, and then you're just out of luck. Now, I don't think I got this unit wet. Part of the reason I'm doing the swap is because it stopped working. But you can see there's some schmutz or something, like some, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's some grossness. Kind of looks like liquid that has definitely come into this thing. So I don't remember that being there before, but it's definitely there now. So whatever. We're replacing parts now, but go ahead and pull these screws. Okay. And they are sized differently, so we want to kind of keep them in order. All right, so that's the first two for the hold switch. Yeah, that thing's got all kinds of corrosion in it. Whew! Look at that. This thing definitely got wet. I don't know where or when, but look at it. It's disgusting. I don't even know what that is. It's like gray and gross. Huh, that's crazy. I have no idea. Okay, and then there's our first one there. And the next one here. There we go. All right, I think it's just 4 screws. This is actually taped down, so we'll set it to the side. And then we'll try to put our new one in. You can see this has a riser block on it, and it's just a little bit different in the design. Let's go ahead and set it in. There we go. I'll put this one on first. Excellent. And this one. I guess the rule still holds. Don't tighten everything down until you have all the screws started. And this is another one of the things about this model. It's just kind of tedious to put back together, but the payoff is really nice when you're done. That screw really just doesn't want to go in there. It's like it's not the right size. Huh. Try this big silver one real quick. That's screwed down right away. Okay. So let's try to get the this in. Interesting. This is marked Foxconn in 2008. I don't know. You know, the manufacturers don't always, they're not always completely honest when they put their markings on their ribbon cables and on their boards and stuff with reproduction parts. So I'd be interested to know if that's actually the correct manufacturer date for this or not. Huh. This is not a very good quality part here. It does not fit particularly well. And you can see it when I switch it to pulled off, it's not like closing all the way. Maybe it's just a break-in thing. Okay, we'll just roll with it. I'm the only one who's going to use this, so it's not the right screw there either. Wondering if I've just forgotten, like, are the screw sets different between the big and the smaller backs, you know? Honestly, I don't remember. We jumped ahead a little bit because that screw took forever to get out. And I actually found, not the original, but an earlier back that I used on this one. And I think that it has some screws in the bag. Let me see, at some point, I did have this older one on here. So let's see if any of these are bigger than the screw that I'm dealing with right now. And this one kind of looks like it's off of that part right there. So I'm not sure this is a stock screw, but it does have the Loctite on like they did from the factory. I went ahead and skipped ahead a little bit. I figured you didn't want to see me fight with these screws for like 10 minutes, but I ended up getting it. I had to go and grab some spare parts out of the bag from the last time I modified this one. And yeah, so now it's in there. And like I said, the whole switch here is a little stiff. I'm wondering if that might just break in over time. But yeah, so that's that. Now, one thing that I've seen on almost every iPod I've ever opened is this little piece of tape that just kind of tapes down the ribbon cables here. So instead of pulling that, we're going to grab a fresh piece of Kapton and put that in there. All right, I want to be delicate because this is not just flat on like it is in the other one. And at the same time, I don't want it to come loose. Put that in there. Okay, so that's that. Last thing is we've got to swap out this little bottom piece with this new black one. So just like before, we're going to pull that and move it over. It's the little bitty things like this on the iPod that really make a big difference in the way that it looks at the end. Some people like the Oreo kind of multiple color Dalmatian look. But for me, if I'm going to go and put this thing back to stock, which is in this case black, I'd like for the whole thing to be that way. So we'll take this one and we'll go ahead and put it in and screw it back down. So my past self may have gotten screws mixed up, which is why they didn't fit earlier on the deck, which is a little funny, but hey, we all make mistakes, right? There we go. All right, new black bezel, new face, new back. Last thing we gotta do is get the battery situation figured out, and then also plug this in and get a SD card put in it. The reason I say figure out the battery situation is, if I remember correctly, this is manufactured backwards. What I mean by backwards is, when we put this together, that's going to go there. The battery is going to go here. Maybe it's not backwards. Maybe I remembered that incorrectly. Yeah, because that looks right. Okay, cool. So in that case, we're just going to go ahead and plug this bad boy in. And the bails on these are really, really delicate. So if you have to lift the bail like I'm about to do, be really gentle not to crack it, because they're very prone to the little brown piece just coming right off. We'll hold up on that for just a second. We'll get these other ones put in first. These bails are a little bit more resilient, but that power one has always just been really delicate. It's not age, you know. I remember when these things were new, they were still just super, super delicate. I'm sure they're getting more delicate as they get older, but they've always been delicate. All right, there's that. I'm going to go ahead and put this in before we put the battery on, so we're not plugging anything in live. Today we're just going with 32 gigs, and I'm gonna put in this first slot if I remember right. I would want to put more in here eventually, but this is what I have today, so this is what's going in it. All right, and then once again, let's get the delicate little bail. All right, set that in there. And then our battery, you know, I kind of want to put kept on that too. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and put our battery in. And then because this SD card hasn't been formatted, we're hoping to get a boot screen with a sad iPod. Okay, so maybe that's what I'm remembering about this not fitting correctly. So I just pulled that out. So I might have to, yeah, that's what it is. It's got to lay in here like this, but this is backwards because they manufactured it in a silly way. So give it a little twist like that. And we'll try again. And now the battery doesn't want to fit. Okay, so disclaimer, don't ever do what we're fixing to do here. But I've got to figure out where this cable is butting into and maybe reroute it. So once again, these batteries are really, really ticky. They're not something that you want to break. So don't do this. But I can already see that I think this is just a cable routing problem. I think they just routed it backwards. So let's go ahead and open this. So if we put it in there like that. So there are exposed contacts here. And I don't want that. And at the same time, I want my full range of like cable motion here. So we're going to play with this a little bit and try to protect all the exposed contacts while also giving full range of motion to our cable like that. Okay, so that should be clean, clear. Gives us a little bit extra room to move that cable around, and then see if we can get it. All right, so that gave us what we needed. Let's go ahead and see if we can power it on. The battery may be very dead. Ah, good, perfect. So it's giving us it's essentially the sad iPod logo. Not quite exactly, but it's telling us it needs to go get plugged in to restore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit more tape on here, capped on, just to protect that ribbon cable a little bit more. Make sure that it doesn't get torn or anything. And yeah, and then we're going to go plug it in. So we'll just cut off a fresh piece here. And then we're going to put a little bit more up top just for protection. Yep, that should be good to go. Now, this battery is hanging out in there loosely, but I think it's going to be fine once it gets clamped down in place. And then we'll be good to go. There we go. Not perfect. Once again, this is just for me. So. And it's a little bit heavier, but it's still not super heavy compared to the original. But yeah, so let's go ahead and take that. We'll plug it into the computer and we'll get it imaged. All right, so it's the next day. I kind of had to wrap the day up, but I have gone ahead and charged the iPod and loaded the OS back on the computer. And so now it's good to go. You can hear that nice iPod click, the classic sound. I loaded some music on it. Of course, I don't go where there is music. I've loaded some music. It's all right there, ready to go. And yeah, it's working great. Everything that was wrong with it before has been fixed with the replacement of that battery and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's nice. The lock button, it's not working correctly, so I might have to figure that one out. See, now it's locked. Oh no. So it should be locked. We should be getting a lock icon right now, but we're not. Sorry, it's hold on these old iPods. That is surely not doing it. All right. So let's take a look at that, see if we can figure that out. So to open these, I didn't show you at the beginning, but it's pretty simple. Just kind of go around the edge here. And it's got snaps around the outside. You can hear them clipping. Once you get them undone, you can kind of just pull them out like that. So let's see here. We're still running, so we got to be careful. Okay, now it's working. It's almost like there's pressure being put on it from that tight fit that we had, because this, you can see it pop up on the screen there. The hold switch is working. So let's see. I think I see the problem. Go ahead and open this back up. There's a lot of foam on this adapter here to kind of keep stuff partially from moving, but also from shorting. And because we've got this big battery in, we don't really need the extra foam, and it's got that soft on the back to keep it from touching. So let's go ahead and just pull that out, and then see if when we reassemble this, if it doesn't make our lives easier. And let's grab a piece of Kapton. Just tape this down so that it doesn't move. All right. We need to reconnect our power. Push that bail back down. There you go. Let's see if we've got. All right. You see that black screen I was talking about? So it's black because this was originally a black iPod, and now it matches again. It would be white if it was a white iPod from factory. Okay, so we're running again. Hold switch is working. Oop, forget you gotta slot it in from the bottom side here. All right, it's working now. So yeah, it was just an issue with it being too tight because of these extra little pads, but we don't need them on this. You hear there's no rattle. Everything's good. So yeah, there's a little bit of a bulge down here. Let's take the 30-pin cable here and plug it in. And yeah, so you see it, the 30-pin doesn't want to line up. So we got something going on there. There we go. Now it's happy. But that bulge is still sticking out just a bit. So let's open it one more time. So I'm just massaging this edge here. And we'll put it back in. Actually, I'm going to shuffle the battery up just a hair. before we put this in. Okay, it's still bulging a little bit, but it's a lot better than it was. I think I can live with that. Yeah, that's good. Turn it back on. Yep, we're good. Yep, got nothing there. Great. So yeah, we're good to go on that. And yeah, so last thing to do would be to just test it with some headphones. Ooh, that's gross. Clean that off. And then I got one other thing. I want to do to this iPod that's a little bit special. You know, I remember when Steve Jobs was alive, and I remember a bunch of the keynotes and stuff when this stuff was being announced. And you know, people have opinions about the guy, but I always liked the way he did things as far as like public appearance and stuff. And I used to work at Apple, and he actually passed away right before I started working at Apple. And I was always a little bummed out about that because I always liked his presentation. So one thing, this product came out while Steve Jobs was still alive. So what we're going to do is we're going to laser engrave Steve Jobs' signature right there at the top of this iPod. So let's go do that. All right then, so we're going to go ahead and put the signature right up here. We'll go ahead and shoot it. All right, we gave it just a little bit more power. Now you can actually feel the engrave. It's not quite exactly the same as the one below it, but it looks really good. All right, so we're back over here on the workbench, and you can see we got that engraving up there. It looks a little off color, but it's really not that bad in person. And the signature I went with is actually the signature. There's a check that Steve Jobs signed, I think in the 70s to Radio Shack, and this was a signature on there. I know it's not date correct for this iPod, but I like it, and it is his signature. So we put that on there. So this is like a one of one now, one of one iPod, Steve Jobs signature on it. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. You know, I got the cool one of one engraving on it, the cool 1 terabyte on the back, the expandable memory. I can put pretty much as I want in here. I'm really happy with this. So if you really enjoyed this video and you want to see more, we try to post videos every Saturday. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can get notifications of that. And yeah, we hope to see you back next time. Have a great day.